Okay, it's 2006. Oblivion has just came out and blown everyone away with its fantastic dialogue.
You are pissing me off. What next?
Smosh was the biggest channel on YouTube, delivering fantastic videos right to your front door.
I'm not paying for those.
I'm leaving Smosh.
And Vince McMahon tried to challenge God to a wrestling match. That's, not a meme. That really happened at a pay-per-view. Vince, you are a fucking psychopath. But most importantly, how's our friend THQ doing? Well, they're on top of the world because Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 was a massive hit. It left critics everywhere absolutely speechless. Angry Joe gave it an 11 out of 10. It caused Walter White's heart to implode from too much adrenaline. And even Gordon Ramsay absolutely loved it.
Oh, fuck me. That shit busted.
But most importantly, it meant everyone was throwing their money directly at THQ. So the big question now was, could THQ keep this money train rolling by pumping out another fantastic game?
I hit a woman!
Or would they just drop the ball entirely?
Butterfingers.
Well, that question was quickly answered when THQ dropped the trailer for Smackdown vs. Raw 2007, which contained graphics that were spicier than a Hot Ones episode. Oh my god! Then it came out, and everyone realised the game looked nothing like the trailer. I'll be expecting to see you in court very soon, THQ.
I did it because I liked it.
Despite the clear downgrade in graphics though, SPR 07 is held in high regard by a lot of fans, with many claiming that it somehow manages to dethrone SPR 06 as the undisputed best game in the series. And I mean, if the soundtrack is anything to go by, I can't disagree. Now at first glance, SPR 07 didn't really look that much different from SPR 06 to me. Then I quickly remembered I was playing the PS2 version and not the Xbox 360 one, which looks infinitely better in comparison, with you being able to almost taste that sweet gamer girl sweat. Very moist. But unfortunately, my 360 died many years ago, and while I could go out and buy a new one, I'd rather be able to feed myself this week, to be honest. Plus this video is already very late.
Sussy bata.
And if I leave it any longer, Susan will kill my channel. Come on, it's not all bad. I mean, you can still appreciate all the little details here, like how Rey Mysterio has a new mask. The Divas have breasts bigger than the Titanic, and the return of big, sweaty, shouty men on the main menu.
Damn sure. Boobies.
Although, in fairness, Kurt Angle does appear to be completely off his tits. And I'm going to assume these belts were bought from the nearest Toys R Us. On the real though, the game still looks fantastic, with the PS2 version looking just as good as previous years, containing some beautiful wrestlers, filled with so much protein that they've started a fitness Instagram, and the 360 version looks so damn fine. I wish I could make love to it right now. Like, I'm willing to bet at this point THQ must have had a clear list of requirements when it came to making these games. Picture perfect arenas? Check. Large men with muscles bigger than Australia? Check. Moves that will induce severe back pain? Check. I mean, it isn't perfect, it's a pretty old game after all, but out of the three that I've played so far, SPR 07 is definitely the most polished. Unfortunately though, it seems the roster has taken a bit of a blow, losing notable wrestlers like Chris Jericho, Christian, and of course, Heidenreich.
I know what sex is, but I won't tell you.
But don't worry, THQ's tried to fill that massive hole in your heart by adding in Mr. Kennedy, the Boogeyman, and my personal favourite, the Great Khali.
Holy moly.
However, these great inclusions cannot cover up the fact that THQ removed the Fulfill Your Fantasy match.
What?
No, alright. I know that sounds bad.
Replacing it with a Money in the Bank match, which, works, I think. Okay, it's a bit of a chaotic mess, but I still found it pretty fun. Plus, it isn't the only new thing THQ has thrown at this game, like how we have a whole new control scheme, which admittedly threw me off a little bit. I'm pressing! Basically, THQ must have looked at the old control scheme, thought nah, that's too easy, shredded it, and decided to make the analog stick do about 90% of the heavy lifting, basing the entire grappling system around it. Which, as you can tell, was received about as well as the time Insomniac changed Peter Parker's face from this absolute Chad into Home Bargain's Tom Holland that made everyone cry. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of these new controls, like it doesn't ruin the game or anything, but personally I just think it was a really unnecessary change because there was absolutely nothing wrong with the old controls. Although in saying that, the game more than makes up for this by now having the ultimate controls, which effectively is a feature where you put your opponent into several different holds and then perform a variety of different moves from that particular hold. Like power bombs, pile drivers, a nice DDT turning them into a tree, or a stalling suplex where you can just start squatting them, because the grind never stops. You can also do different stuff depending on where you are, so if you're next to the announce table you can put your opponent through it, or alternatively you can casually throw them straight from the ring to the floor because who needs a spine these days. There's a ton of new environmental attacks here too, which are all really unique and fun to play around with, especially especially because this time you don't have an anger-inducing minigame to play. That's right, get in the trash where you belong. On top of that, all these aspects utilize the stamina system in a much more effective way too, as it drains the longer you carry your opponent around for until you eventually run out of it and can't hold them up any longer. Which, you know, is fairly realistic and also makes a lot more sense than you just collapsing after a light jog. Speaking of realism, SVR07 not only keeps up the current trend of wrestlers under 6 foot being unable to lift anything heavier than a KFC bucket,
I'm about to cry.
but have also added in that bigger wrestlers are now left absolutely unfazed if you dare attempt to strike them while weighing anything less than your average grizzly bear. Oh, and before I forget, you can also fight in the crowd, presumably destroying some very expensive equipment, or if that's not your thing, you can just dive off this very tall scaffolding.
The pace of the match may have slowed.
Wow, so sick. Other than that, the gameplay is pretty similar to the previous games, from moves that give you your recommended daily dose of brain trauma to the incredibly satisfying chair shots. However, with THQ now cramming in all these new features whilst getting rid of any remaining issues, mainly the fucking mini-games, SVR07 manages to evolve into a much more well-rounded and refined game, which still holds up to this day.
This is something else.
Sure, the controls are a bit weird at first, the cameraman clearly has no idea what he's doing, and like most wrestling games, the AI has about 2 collective brain cells, but none of that really bothered me because this gameplay is arguably the best in the series. Being so addictively fun, it should probably be illegal. Honestly, I had a great time playing this game, especially when I played as Viscera. Now once you're done admiring this beautiful gameplay, as usual you can either play in our mentally unstable season mode or dive straight into GM mode, booking matches and making the best decisions possible in order to boost your ratings and get more of that sweet dollar. GM mode hasn't really changed that much since SVR6, like it's basically still the same thing with you starting out drafting your roster, then booking all your shows, whilst constantly doing a fuck ton of other stuff like keeping your roster happy, paying for the medical bills, checking your emails, and praying all the impending stress doesn't make your hair fall out.
It's a good gag, but that's not a fucking receding hairline, dude. Let me show you what a receding hairline looks like.
All while making sure you don't go broke. But never fear, if you're running low on funds or need some extra cash, you can simply plug your shitty merch or get a sponsor.
Let's play Raid Shadow.
The only new additions here are that you can now book different kinds of rivalries that potentially boost your ratings depending on how highly rated that particular storyline is. Like for example, a normal 1v1 storyline might not perform that well, but throw in a diva to fight over and boom, instant 5 stars. As well as that, you can buy different writers that can offer you even juicier storylines. Now sure, overall there hasn't been a lot of stuff added to this mode, but in all honesty there didn't need to be. I mean, it was pretty great in SVR06, so the small updates here only help to get you more invested in beating your rival brand. Plus at the start you get a lovely message from Vince. I mean, how could you not love that? But of course, if you'd rather participate in the action, you can easily play this year's season mode, which is fucking mental.
There is no such thing as a coincidence.
However, before jumping straight into the season mode, I as always need to mold the wrestler I want to play as, and this time, I made a masterpiece.
I have to say, as far as sculptures go, I am incredibly proud of this.
The fuck God.
So obviously, I made PewDiePie.
More pee-pee, go away. Small pee.
She's trolling me.
And again, I've got to say, I fucking nailed it here. Like, just look at this lovely man. You've never seen a more Swedish looking person in your life. Plus, he's got all of PewDie's great tattoos, including his new G Fuel one, and since the man has no legs, I've taken the liberty of giving him a nice new robotic set, which he can easily use to decapitate his enemies. And on top of all that, he even plugs his apps while making his entrance.
What? You never played Super Similar?
Oh, and the creation mode is, still great. Nothing really more I can add to that, so here's the YouTube championship I made, which Big Susan beat me up for. Actually, come to think of it, something I really liked this time round was how the locker room was integrated into the game. Like, you can still customize all the furniture and decorations, so don't worry, you can fit your gaming chair in somewhere, but your locker room actually has a point within the season mode now, rather than just being a place where you can watch top quality content.
He literally has a fat ass, and I want to smack it.
It's now an area where throughout the season mode you can check your messages from other wrestlers, look at WWE.com for the latest news, and also read WWE Magazine for some high-class journalism. Admittedly, it's a pretty small thing, but it goes a long way in helping to make the season mode feel that little bit more immersive. Speaking of which, the season mode here is, quite frankly, a wild time. Now, the season modes in this series have always been pretty fun to play, but unfortunately always seem to have some strange problems, like how in the first SVR game, the voice acting was fucking horrendous.
Wow, looks like things are getting pretty hot in there. I guess sometimes nice guys finish first after all.
I don't get it.
And even though SVR06 fixed the bad voice acting, it seemed they had a bit of an issue when it came to making the cutscenes.
It's awful.
But when it comes to SVR07, I'm happy to report that everything looks good. The voice acting overall has been majorly improved as long as you ignore your created character's voice.
Batista, what the hell are you doing?
And the cutscenes look infinitely better because the moves look impactful rather than two ragdolls falling over.
Great guy beat me, but I'm... Oh no!
To be fair though, the cutscenes aren't perfect and I think the camera is a little bit too close sometimes, but it's a drastic improvement and in comparison to last year's makes this game look like The Last of Us Part 2. Hole-in-one! The narrative here is effectively the same, with you starting out on either Raw or Smackdown and fighting your way through the roster until you win the World Championship. Yeah! However, the cool thing here is that it doesn't just end as soon as you win the world title. The game actually lets you defend your title in various kinds of matches with some unique championship storylines. Like Triple H randomly becoming the Raw General Manager and booking himself in a title match, only for Big Vince to come out and tell him with great power comes great responsibility, and then fire him. On a real, the majority of storylines here are really interesting and fun. From JBL putting a 100k bounty on your head after you win the Royal Rumble, to Kane stealing your girlfriend.
I don't know what's happening.
The season also isn't afraid to get really strange from time to time, with Undertaker using his supernatural abilities to blow out some lights. Nothing a quick trip to B&Q can't fix though. Not to mention, there's a whole storyline devoted to Candice Michelle becoming a fucking wizard and using a magic wand to turn Edge into a real life sim and to turn you into a woman so she can fight you. Viscera also, takes a liking to you. And yeah, all this stuff is mental, but I think the game does a really good job of mixing the crazier storylines with the more serious ones, and as a result, it makes the season mode super enjoyable to play as you never quite know what's going to happen. To put it simply, this season mode is weird as fuck, and I love it. 9 out of 10, needs more Boogeyman though. Honestly, Smackdown vs. Raw 2007 is by far the best game I played in this series. Sure, SVR 6 is fantastic, but shockingly, SVR 7 manages to be that bit better. The gameplay has so many cool mechanics and features to play around with. GM mode is great as always, the season mode offers so much I could play it for hours on end, and the game has Boogeyman, Great Khali, Viscera and Snitsky. Truly, the Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling. All of this of course means that on this completely accurate tier list, SVR 7 is going deservedly in D tier. Hashtag bring back fulfill your fantasy matches.